I would also like to add that this video has been edited, narrated, reviewed, proofread, screenplayed, and written by JLoco11, and as well cannot be distributed, repurposed, or copywritten by anyone other than JLoco11. That goes for the YouTube order yourself, because you can go fuck yourself. Oh man, Kojima, you fucking egotistical motherfucker. Now, let me just start off by saying this. I like the Phantom Pain. I think that once you get the hang of it, you can tell that this is an entertaining and fun game. It's polished, it's the open world we're promised, it's quirky in breaking the fourth wall that we always have when it comes to Metal Gear games, and at times, it gives you a feeling that no other Metal Gear game has given you in the past. There is no doubt this is a high quality game about that. Absolutely no doubt about this. However, the game does come with its own share of flaws. That is absolutely certain for that. For two things. Number one, this does not feel like a Metal Gear game. It feels more like Far Cry, as opposed to having a couple of Metal Gear characters thrown into the motherfucker, as opposed to some of the traditional Metal Gear games we've had in the past. And the second big complaint that I really have is it really does follow the laws of Destiny. We have a lot of repeat areas in this game, and we have a lot of story that really wasn't told through the main character. It's sort of told through a disembodied voice, which is Ocelot in this case, sort of like a narration and shit like that. But other than that, I'm not going to get too much into the flaws that this game has. You know, everything you want in an open world stealth game, this game has created, and it shows that it stands with some of the better Metal Gear games in the past. Personally, I do have a hard time putting this ahead of some of the other games like Metal Gear Solid 1 and certainly Metal Gear Solid 4, but it's a damn fine game. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Is it a Game of the Year contender? Probably will, although I probably don't think it'll win. It certainly has enough merit to compete. It's not the perfect game, but it certainly is good enough to be there. Now, anyone who's followed the Metal Gear series since the beginning, I mean, we're talking almost 30 fucking years now, you know that Kojima has had to twist and turn each fucking game, twist and turn each story, change the narrative of past games in order to get one solid game that has a whole bunch of surprises and shit like that. So it's no surprise that this game tries to do it as well. And every fucking game has to have a twist one way or another that changes everything from prior games, and it sort of makes it kind of irrelevant if you get the point. You know what I'm talking about. Whether the boss was bad, the boss was good, the boss was out for her own agenda, the boss really didn't have an agenda, Big Boss was good, Big Boss was bad, Ocelot was good, Ocelot was bad, oh god, all the twists and turns in this motherfucker. I mean, think about this for a second. How many times has a character been killed in a Metal Gear game only to show up in some later form? It's like these people don't check for fucking vital signs or a pulse or some shit like that. Look, man, if somebody's fucking dead, make sure the motherfucker is dead. But in Metal Gear games, oh no, he looks dead. I'm not going to check the body or anything like that. Meanwhile, he'll come back in the sequel or some shit like that, man. But anyway, that being said, all of that, I'm not going to do a full review of this game. I'm not going to get into whether or not I like it, what the problems are in full scale. The one thing I do want to talk about, though, is my one massive pet peeve. And now that my prologue is out of the way, credit roll, please. Holy fucking shit, how annoying is that crap? If you play this game and you play the entirety of it, you know exactly what I'm going to talk about in this ridiculous credits after each fucking chapter. Have you ever seen something like this? I mean, now don't get me wrong. These credits take nothing away from the game. Nothing. If someone were to give this game a 9.5, and they were to say that that 0.5 is the credit rolls, I would smack the living shit out of them. You can skip them, you never have to see them, you don't have to worry about them. They take all of half a second to bypass. So this isn't some strange and unusual shit that you can't get rid of. And you can almost understand why Kojima would do something like this in the first place, considering the big fuck you Konami gave him. I get that. But after every chapter? Look, I don't know about you, but personally, I really don't give a fuck about the Konami drama. You know, big time executives get screwed over all the time. That shit happens in the real world, outside of video games and normal business. Kojima's a wildly creative and talented game developer and made plenty of money off the Metal Gear series, so I'm sure he'll be fucking fine. Chances are, the man does need a break from making the same fucking series for the past 30 years. You know, in some ways, you're happy that he can move on from something that engulfed his entire video gaming life. In other ways, you're kind of sad that he didn't get to choose his goodbye on his own terms and it was determined by Konami. I would have rather him say that this was his final game as opposed to Konami saying get the fuck out of the office. Although he did say that shit after Metal Gear 4 was going to be his final fucking game. But anyway, they credit rolled his ass right the fuck out of the building. And speaking of credit rolls, That shit's getting annoying, isn't it? You can't even skip that shit in my video. But anyway, as for Konami, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. You know, maybe they want to go out of business. Maybe they don't have any money left. Who the fuck knows? They've pissed away their business over the past 10 to 15 years. They've watched franchise after franchise whittle away into nothing. And now they're counting all their fucking pennies. Maybe they got tired of Kojima. Who knows? Maybe they saw him wanting to do other things besides Metal Gear for the past 30 fucking years. And they would rather let him do that shit on his own instead of under their own brand. Doesn't make any fucking sense. But listen, what really doesn't make sense is these credit rolls after each fucking chapter. Yes, Big Boss was the star in each chapter. I get that. And if you pay attention to the opening of each chapter, it tells you who is going to be in the upcoming chapter, who you're going to see in this mission. For example, that early chapter where the skulls were showing up, they were added to the opening credits of the mission. Okay, so now I see that at some point, I'm going to see the skulls during this mission. Then at the end of the chapter, starring Big Boss. No shit. Who the fuck else is it going to star? And of course, each chapter has to mention that this is a Hideo Kojima product. It's like they have to remind Konami who made this franchise happen for 30 years. It's like whipping his dick out and rubbing it in the CEO's face. Right? Doesn't it seem like this shit? He's just like rubbing his junk on someone's cheek and nose over at Konami with each and every chapter this game offers. You know, anyone who's followed this franchise knows who made this game. I don't think it needs to be said 100 fucking times to get the point across. I think it's a pretty good fuck you to Konami, but for those who don't know anything about the drama behind this game, those who haven't played the franchise for 30 goddamn years will probably look at the screens and be like, why the fuck do I need to see this shit all the goddamn time? And again, this doesn't take away from the game, as these shits can be skipped in a matter of seconds, but the underlying principle behind this screen essentially reminds gamers of how dysfunctional this relationship was between Konami and Kojima. You created a grand franchise, one that people will wait years to get their hands on, and they will buy and play in droves. Yet all that money, all the accolades, all the success these games created, and the two parties responsible can't get their shit together and agree on stuff. And their pissing match spills over into the game, and the fans get to see that each and every time they finish a chapter. The fans get to see that shit when you actually get to recruit Kojima in the game as part of a fucking Easter egg. You know, I know those credits are not meant to be taken seriously. It's part of Kojima's quirky sense of humor and all that, and there's sort of a running gag throughout the game after a while, but it's wholly unnecessary. There are other ways of sticking your middle finger up at Konami and giving them a nice big fuck you. Ultimately though, this pissing match between these two are ultimately going to cost fans to the game in the long run. Sure, someone could come along, take the reins of the game, possibly make the story more cohesive or some shit like that, or understandable, but there's a big difference in someone coming in and taking someone over else's project as opposed to the original creator handling the project. Now, I don't know what Konami's going to want to do. They basically pissed away almost all their fucking franchises. I mean, can anyone find a Castlevania game in the past 50 years? Almost everything they did. They had the fucking Silent Hill game that they decided to cancel. Why? Because Kojima was on it. Who the fuck knows? Nobody knows what the drama is behind the scenes over there. But Metal Gear is by far and away one of their most recognizable names. It is by far and away one of their most profitable games after it has to go through all these years of development and shit like that by the time Kojima gets his ideas actually out onto paper. But the idea is anytime you put the Metal Gear name on a game, chances are it's going to sell, and it's going to sell well. But here's the thing. Kojima made sure that when the product was released, it was released to absolute perfection. It was released up to his standards, otherwise he wasn't going to release the game. Although this game does feel incomplete when you guys get to the end of this motherfucker. But now you're putting someone else at the reins of the game. Now you're putting someone who doesn't have that 30-year invested interest into making sure that your product and your name, because obviously Kojima likes putting his name on this motherfucker, actually means something when you roll out the game. I don't know what Konami's going to do in the future. I don't think anybody knows what Konami's going to do in the future with the series. But after Metal Gear 4, it certainly seemed like it was ending in the long run because they created a fantastic finale for the game and pretty much closed up all the plot points. Now, with the latest two games, with the Revengeance crap, with Peace Walker, with this motherfucker, all you're doing is opening up new avenues for future games and shit like that. Basically, it shows that they're going to try and milk this franchise with all its timeline warps and all that other shit for as many years as they possibly can, even without the one person who has the most vested interest in the game. The motherfucker who has no problem putting his name on every single fucking chapter. Oh, man. Anyways, maybe sometime down the road, I'll get into an actual review of Metal Gear. I still haven't finished it myself. I'm close to it, but I still haven't finished it myself, so maybe one time I'll be able to talk about the whole fucking game and shit like that. But for now, as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all that good shit, and I'll see you guys in the next video.